Hi everybody, welcome to Train Forever. I'm Andrew Barr, and today I'm talking about training tips for parents of young children. The first tip, which honestly isn't really a tip, but it's an important idea or concept, is to be somebody who exercises consistently before you have children. It would be very difficult to establish a pattern of consistent training when you have young kids. So hopefully you've already built up that consistent routine. You are somebody where exercise is important to you and it's already part of your life. This is, of course, going to optimize your chances of success for staying at least somewhat consistent while you navigate training and parenting. The next tip I have is the one that was the most helpful for me when my daughter was very young, and that's taking a break from the ultra high intensity training if you're doing any of that in your regular weekly workouts. In the weight room, that looks like Olympic lifting or heavy barbell work like heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, heavy bench press, that sort of thing. It doesn't mean that you can't or shouldn't push yourself. It just means taking at least a temporary break from the highest effort work that you do. This applies on the aerobic training side as well. So things like sprinting or lactate threshold training, those sorts of things, you're probably better off taking a little bit of a break when you're going through that phase where your kids are very young and sleep is compromised. And that's the reason why, because when sleep is compromised, recovery is compromised. And it can be difficult to recover from a heavy squatting workout under optimal conditions, let alone when you're getting woken up several times per night. So you don't give up on these movements. You don't give up on working hard. If you're somebody who normally does barbell squats, you can spend a few months maintaining the integrity of the movement by working on your goblet squats and similar movements. And then when you feel like you're getting consistent sleep, you can return to the high effort work that you like to do. It just might not be worth it when you have a child young enough to significantly interrupt your sleep. The next training tip that I have is to try to create the most simple, straightforward training routine that you can that would still give you some kind of results. And when I say results in this context, I'm mostly talking about the health benefits of exercise, little energy boost, feeling better, improved mood, these sorts of things that are also very important. Now, what would this look like in practice? I would go with something like 3 20 to 25 minute workouts per week. Each workout would consist of 3 movements, and we would do them as a circuit, and they would all be compound movements. I would go with something like a goblet squat, and then a push-up and a bent over row. Or alternatively, or on a different workout day, we could do a split squat, a Romanian deadlift, and an overhead press. Now for a warm-up for this type of workout, because the training is lower intensity, we can have a shorter warm-up. We still want to and need to warm up because it's such an effective injury prevention tool. And if you don't have time to work out, you definitely don't have time to be injured. So what can we do in a couple of minutes to get ourselves ready to train? So something very simple and straightforward. You might have a couple preparatory movements that you really like to do at the start of your training. You know that they help you feel good. Things like a glute bridge, a bird dog, anything like that. And then you can do one round of the exercises that you're going to do just with lighter weight and or lighter reps. Next tip, it's usually a good idea to train earlier in the day. Now, this is advice that's given to lots of different people, not just parents, but because parents are often dealing with sleep interruptions, energy level tends to decline more significantly and more rapidly throughout the day. So the longer you get throughout your day without having trained, in general, on average, we would expect the probability of somebody completing a training session to go down. Doesn't mean that you have to do it first thing in the morning, but I would describe it as try to take the first available opportunity that you have to train. I know from experience, I had a lot of best laid plans to work out in the evening, but oftentimes that combination of bedtime plus cleaning up the kitchen was just too much, and I really didn't have a lot left in the tank. Sometimes I would still get to the gym then, but I found it quite difficult, and I think that is a pretty common experience. So to try to avoid that situation altogether, it's a good idea to get that workout done earlier in the day. Next, you can play physical games with your kid. Now, you can't do this with a newborn, but pretty early on, certainly once your kids are walking, you can incorporate them into your movement routine. If we can increase your overall physical activity profile in a given week by making a conscious effort to do physical play with your kids, that's going to benefit you as well. What do I mean by that? It can be silly little things like climbing the play structure, with them. It can be chasing them. It could be picking them up and throwing them around. That sort of thing, if you're making a conscious effort to do it regularly, can make a really big difference in terms of your overall movement profile. The last tip that I have is to make a point to get back to training. And what I mean by that is the strategies that I'm talking about today, they're particularly important and effective during the phase of life when your kids are very young. Kids do grow up, and believe it or not, they get a little bit easier to take care of once they get a little bit older. My daughter is 6.5 at the time of this video recording, and I would say starting about a year ago, I got back to a place where I really felt like I was pushing myself in the gym again. Some people are going to maintain a really good training routine while their kids are young, and that is awesome. But most people don't, and that's okay. Feeling shame or guilt about it is not going to help anything. If anything, it's just going to make it less likely for you to return to consistent training when you can. So give yourself a break. It's a challenging period in life. Maybe some of the tips I covered today will help you stay consistent with your routine. I certainly hope they do. And that is it for today's video. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Happy training.